Hello, everyone. Before I start, do any of you speak German? Okay, shit, because I am going to be pronouncing a lot of words incorrectly in the next 9 minutes. I wanted to keep the sort of the momentum going, so we've already had gaming, we've had the X-Files, obviously very popular subjects amongst geeks. So I'm going to be talking about pedestrian crossing signals used in the German Democratic Republic, basically up until the collapse of the Berlin Wall. In particular, I'm going to be talking about this guy. This guy is Ampelmann. Ampelmann, or Ampelmannchen, the little traffic men, were designed by a guy called Karl Pegler. I mean, I can't even pronounce the word Karl. Is that a German word? That's a name. I know. I've got a friend who's called Karl, and he's not German. I'm going to stop talking about my friend Karl, and I'm going to carry on. Karl was working as a traffic psychologist in Berlin in the 1960s, and he was working on ways to improve road safety. He proposed this as a sort of traffic light system rather than the one just using circles. He thought that if you had colour and shape and position, then that would be safer. It would be easier to read if you were sort of had colourblind issues or colourblind issues. Yeah, colourblind issues. Or if you are colourblind. So he introduced. So they used pedestrian crossing. The pedestrian crossing symbols that they used in Germany were sort of similar to the walk, don't walk signs. So they had text. Note the lack of apostrophe in don't walk. It's walk, don't walk. But obviously in Germany they had them in German. But he realised that actually if you have text, that's not really necessarily helpful if you're a non-native speaker, if you're a child, if you have like literacy issues. So he introduced the Ampelmann, so you have green for go, guys, I thought, and red for... Okay, good. I was wondering, like, how had you got here today? So the Ampelmann became really popular, and part of the reason is because of they wear these little hats. And these hats were sort of added as almost like a joke by Karl's secretary, it's a bit blurry, Annelies Wegner, who they didn't think that they'd get passed or get sort of approved because they were worried that they'd have capitalistic overtones that could lead to ideological difficulties from the government, because that was the sort of society that they were obviously living in. But despite the hat, or perhaps because of the hat, Ampelmann became really popular, and he appeared on TV, and people sort of really loved him. But then the Berlin Wall collapsed, and you're like, oh, poor Ampelmann, because he got replaced by Westman. And Westman is actually less efficient. Like, if you compare, because Ampelmann is quite fat, he's quite chunky, he's got this hat, so he actually emits more light, so he's more green than the green Westman, he's more red than the red Westman. And so this campaign began to sort of bring him back. One of the people who led the campaign was a guy called Marcus Heckhausen. Heckhausen was a product designer actually from West Germany, but he could sort of see the charm in these two designs, and he started buying up old street lamps and turning them into interior lights. And this campaign to stop the replacement of Ampelmann with Westman, it was successful, and Ampelmann was saved, but he was sort of saved on capitalism's terms because he was turned into a brand. And now there's shops all over Berlin which sort of sell Ampelmann memorabilia. You can buy key rings and T-shirts and footballs and all sorts of stuff. And I've completely lost where I am. So the story of Ampelmann is often used as an example of nostalgia, which is like this nostalgia for the East, for the German Democratic Republic. And nostalgia is often sort of criticised because I've really brought the mood down, haven't I? Because I'm talking about the Stasi. So yeah, like obviously East Germany wasn't fun. I mean, you don't get people climbing over barbed wire fences and trying to avoid being shot to leave a really cool party, do you? That doesn't really happen. But I think it's, and so Ampelmann and nostalgia is kind of like, it's often viewed as being sort of naive and this sort of sense that it's apolitical because it sort of pretends that everything was fine. But actually I think it's sort of a bit more complex than that. I think that Ampelmann, the reason that there was this affection for him is because if you replace Ampelmann, if you replace the things that people liked about East Germany, then you're sort of denying those people their history, you're denying them their childhood, you're denying them like the reality of their everyday lives. And I think that that's sort of, you can't really do that because people's lives weren't awful. Well, they were awful, but they had like some nice bits. And to deny that is sort of to deny the resilience of the human spirit. And so there's this like sort of ambiguity. Ampelmann is like this figure of ambivalence. And you can see this in this statement by Karl Pegler, where he says that he talks about them as being stylized cult figures, symbols against an unreasonable post-unification reconditioning mentality, which is a fantastic sequence of words, and psychologically conceived symbols of regulating the behavior of pedestrians. And that's true. Like, here they are as stylized cult figures. Here they are defeating Westman and being unworkable post-unification reconditioning mentality. And here they are as part of a sort of psychologically conceived system. But once he became this brand, there was like this sort of subtle change in the way that he was orientated. Originally, actually, when he was first introduced, he was facing the right, but then there was a sort of poll, and it was decided that it would be more politically appropriate for him to be walking left. But now, when you buy him as a product, he's facing the right, and they claim that that's because it's graphically a more elegant and dynamic direction. But it sort of also acts as like a really sort of clunky, horrible, literal metaphor for the way that he's literally turned his back on his old socialist past and turned to the right to embrace a sort of capitalistic future, which has all the subtlety of like a Banksy cartoon, or the work of Martin Shovel, which some of you might not know, but Martin Shovel, is like, look him up on Twitter and stuff. He's a cartoonist. He does these amazing cartoons where it'll be like, there'll be like a bottle of milk with the words fiscal policy written on it. And then that'll be knocked over, and it'll be like, there'll be a cat who's sort of fat, he's like a fat cat. And it would have the word bankers written on it. And then he'd be licking up the milk, and then there'd be like a little mouse, and the mouse would be crying, and then next to the mouse it'd say British taxpayers. And then there'd be like a box of cereal which says Credit Crunch. And then the caption would be something like, quantitative easing, no point crying over spilt milk or something. There's a Facebook group, actually I'm talking too much about Martin Shovel, but there's a Facebook group called We Heart Martin Shovel, and he joined the group because he thought it was a genuine fan group, and then realised that everyone was taking the piss out of him, and called us all cunts, and then left. I feel a bit bad about that. But it was a good response. Well done, Martin. That's the funniest thing that Martin Shovel has ever actually done. But so this is not a. Sorry, Martin, if you're here. But yeah, so it became like this sort of popular brand, and recently Visit Berlin did a series of pop-up shops around Europe. There was one in Bethnal Green recently. And I went there and I bought this book, and when I bought it they said that it was the last copy they had, and I thought, oh wow, it's like fate is on my side. Fate has chosen me to buy this book. And then I looked on Facebook and realised if I'd gone there the day before I would have got 50% off. And so fate did decide that it was for me to buy that book, but at the full price. Ampelmann has been popular in Tokyo. There's now shops opening there. There's a book that was based on Ampelmann's adventures in Japan, where he sort of goes around, visits tourist attractions and sees people, and goes to the garage. The famous thing that you do when you go to Tokyo, of course. And there's, wherever you are in the world, you can buy, or no, not even buy, it's free. You can download the Ampelmann app, which is this game, which it's sort of like, you have to, there's music playing, and then there's instructions, and you have to kick a ball, like by pressing the thing, and then you have to blow this trumpet and squeeze the pinch, and it's really confusing because I don't speak German. And I refuse to sort of watch any of the instructional videos where they explain how to use it, because I think if you're designing an app based on the work of Carl Paglau, which is all about the way that things should be intuitive and it shouldn't be a language barrier, then you can't, it just doesn't, yeah. It should be intuitive to use, basically, that's my point, and then it finishes. And that's it.